Now welcome to another edition of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll for General Hux. We'll then see how those results, how this character stacks up against, or where he ranks against all the other characters we've done thus far, before I then read and respond to some of your comments. But before any and all that, you know what to do. Head down to nominate and or vote for which character we'll do next by responding to my pinned comment with a name, or voting with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already listed. Whatever single comment gets the most votes in the next 24 hours or so will be the winner and the character we do next. Alright, and now on to the results for General Hux, where we'll see that 1% of voters gave him an A, 3% went with a B, 16% gave him a C, 30% then thought he was a D tier character, which left 50% or roughly half of all voters to give him an F. And so when we do all the math here and consider A a score of 5 and F a score of 1, General Hux ends up with an average score of 1.75, which sees him land in 65th place overall, down there with pretty much every other single sequel character we've done. Which then brings us to my usual little disclaimer that I do when we rate sequel characters, that since I'm not the biggest fan of those films, it tends to mean those who watch my videos also aren't big fans of them either. Though there are certainly exceptions who love the sequels and watch my videos who realize we don't have to all love the same things in exactly the same way to be fans and to have civil conversations with each other. What a concept. Basically what I'm saying is that the sequel characters are bound to finish lower than they would should a more pro sequel channel do the same poll. Not that a pro sequel channel wouldn't also be biased or get biased results to some degree in the other direction. So somewhere in between would likely be the most accurate results we could hope to get for sequel characters, though in all reality, I don't think Hux here would finish much higher than he actually did. But anyway, let's now move on to your comments, but not before once again saying thank you to everyone who votes, comments, and watches these or any of my videos. It is all greatly appreciated. Also, a big thank you to everyone who supports this channel and what I try to do here over on Patreon. And so let's now begin, as we always do, with the top-rated comment, which this time came to us from Derek Lopez, who said, "The Force Awakens Hux was totally space Hitler. The Last Jedi Hux was suddenly made into an absolute laughingstock and a punching bag. The Rise of Skywalker, I'm the spy. This sums it all up to his character, F for me." And that does sum up the character, or the problem with the character, quite well, so we could probably leave it at that and call it a video. But yeah, like a lot of things in the sequels, Hux simply gets used or changed to fit the current writer or director's particular needs for his film. There was no consistency with many, if not most, of the characters. Their stories aren't what drives the overall story. Instead, it's kind of the other way around, and they get driven by the bigger story, molded by it, and placed when and where needed in order to fulfill the writer's vision, which is then a problem compounded by the fact that the writers had completely different visions. But anyway, let's now move on to this comment from Blue Diamond Director, who said, "Hux, some people complain that Rian Johnson ruined him in The Last Jedi. To that I say he was built broken. What I mean is he was already a joke. Over the top and cartoony right from the get-go. His Starkiller base speech is so cheesy. Rian could have worked with the character to improve him and fix JJ's mess, but instead he found him funny and just made him worse. The canon lore hints at more for the character, like killing his own father, which is just taken from Yasani Yasard in the EU, but we don't see that in his character in the films. He's just made into a joke in all three films. He was supposed to be a new Tarkin, but Tarkin was far better character. Hux's final fate was to die at the hands of a character that would have been better to be in his place from the beginning, General Pride." Also then we have this comment from B. Marshy 2303, who said, "The Force Awakens set him up to be an amazing antagonist and one with many lessons to teach us about real-life leaders. The son of a patriotic Imperial officer who had been brainwashed to continue his father's legacy, The Last Jedi made him look like a fool with that god-awful Yo Mama joke in the first scene and then being humiliated by Kylo Ren after Snoke dies. And if I'm being honest, I don't remember much of him being in The Rise of Skywalker, besides his over-the-top cartoonish death and the whole I'm the spy shenanigans. Went from a B to a D to an F- for me." Alright, and personally I'm somewhere between these two takes, because yeah, Hux is a little cartoony or too over the top in The Force Awakens, his big speech is a bit much. And it is maybe hard to take him seriously because of it, but I kind of thought that was the point of him. I just got the impression he never believed in it, in the First Order and all of it, as much as he wanted to just sell he believed in it, because it was what he could use to then get what he desired, that he desperately wanted to be taken seriously, to have power, and be respected, and this was his ticket to it. And I certainly think a lot of people in the real world can be that way. I talk a little bit about it in my video yesterday, that they don't always believe in the cause they're selling as much as they want you to believe so that they can sell you something else without you realizing it. That they know it's their ticket to wealth, fame, power, or whatever it might be. And you always have to be leery of people like that. You have to be leery of someone who convinces you there's a problem or that something could be better or needs fixing, and then they want to sell you the solution to that problem they've convinced you exists. And for me, and I could be wrong, you could see it completely differently, that's absolutely fair, but for me, that's what Hux in The Force Awakens, anyway, that's what he represented. He's someone who wants to convince everyone else the First Order is the solution, and he's the one who can make it all happen through the First Order. And I was actually interested to see what they do with the character, but of course, we know how it all plays out. Alright, and next up here we have this comment from CMD3 who said, I liked him in The Force Awakens because he was the true believer zealot I always figured was created by the Empire. He wasn't just an officer because it's a job, but because what he's doing truly is good for the galaxy. Then he was turned into the literal butt of the joke in The Last Jedi for reasons I'll never understand, and the damage was so total that J.J. Abrams had to completely discard and replace him in Episode 9, with a cunning Imperial officer he wanted all along. And I mean, yeah, I could see that being the case, or the original intent as well, that he was the true zealot believer that had drank every last drop of the Kool-Aid and had asked for more afterwards, that he believed in everything the Empire had been once upon a time, or that his father had convinced him to believe in, and now he completely bought what Snoke was selling to him. But I still get the impression he was meant to be a small, weak man, and I'm not just talking physically here, who wanted to bully and control others, and the First Order was his ticket, his means by which to accomplish that, not so much that he was driven by belief in the First Order. And the fact that it was J.J. Abrams in The Rise of Skywalker that made him the spy, that he ended up revealing him to be so petty that he'd betray the First Order just to see Kylo Ren lose, says that maybe it was the original intent with him. That he was all along supposed to be a weak little man looking for strength in order to gain some semblance of control over others. Either that or The Last Jedi had destroyed the character so badly, had been such a departure from what JJ had originally envisioned, assuming any real vision for him at all, that the only thing left to do with him was turn him into and confirm him to be the sniveling little treacherous rat. Alright, and next up here we have this comment from Elarad who said, you know, he actually could have been interesting. I liked the idea of the dynamic between him and Ren, one the military political leader, the other the sort of spiritual leader, supreme commander's enforcer, that they were on equal footing but with different roles, each vying for Snoke's favor. It wasn't a bad idea. Then Hux was turned into an absolute joke by Johnson, a pointless subplot in the final film, and now he's worthless. I'll just give him a D. Also hear this comment from Jerry Hazard, who said, I found him a compelling villain, an adversary thorn in Kylo's side in The Force Awakens, but the subsequent films destroyed him. I was really pulling for him, sad to see his character fail like that. Then there's this one from Darth Malik, who said, he was alright in The Force Awakens, kind of playing the Tarkin to Kylo's Vader, but in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, he, like many other characters, were made into jokes and had everything intriguing about them thrown away. And yeah, he was sort of the Tarkin to Kylo's Vader, but in a whole different way, because clearly Vader not only listened to and obeyed Tarkin, but there was a level of respect there. Vader clearly respected Tarkin and was okay with being, or so it seemed, pretty subservient to him. Something we don't even remotely see with any other Imperial officer or anyone else involved with the Empire, besides, of course, Palpatine. But with Kylo and Hux, there was almost this sibling rivalry as they vied to be Snoke's favorite, as Elrad pointed out in their comment, which I thought actually worked fairly well in The Force Awakens, even though it sounds kind of silly and like it shouldn't work or should just come off as maybe childish. But yeah, as basically the comment said, it all gets thrown away early in The Last Jedi with the "your mama" joke. I will never forget watching the movie for the first time, seeing or listening to that happen and not really believing it or not wanting to believe it. Couldn't believe they'd add this very sort of contemporary joke to Star Wars like that? But anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole and instead get to this comment from Magnus TNT, who said, in all honesty, him being a spy could have been a great twist, like with Agent Kallus. However, instead he was treated as a joke in The Last Jedi, and the twist that he was a spy came completely out of left field. Then we also have this one from Girly Sword, who said, I see people are upset that Hux being a spy is a joke, but it is such a funny joke. That he is so petty to give info to a cause he hates just because he hates this one specific person even more. Hux doesn't have to be like Kallus. We already have a Kallus. And yes, it certainly is played as a joke. Even J.J. Abrams wanted it that way. He wanted Domhnall Gleeson to deliver the I'm the spy line as over the top and kind of ridiculous as possible so that it'd be even funnier in theory. Problem is, not that you can't find the whole thing humorous, but this is a guy who asked Snoke to use the weapon to fire Starkiller Base, to blow up the Hosnian system, to kill hundreds of billions of people, and he gave a speech right before it trying to kind of say they deserved to be destroyed. So, in all reality, there is nothing that should be funny about this guy. In this moment, in The Rise of Skywalker, we're learning just how petty General Hux truly is, how petty this mass murderer is, that he didn't even believe in what he was doing when he blew up an entire system of planets, again, hundreds of billions of people, that he was indeed just someone who wanted power over others and was willing to do whatever it took. Wanted it so much to be feared and or respected or whatever it is he exactly wanted, that he'd again kill all those people without a second thought or any remorse afterwards. He didn't turn from the First Order because there was a shred of dignity or regret in him, and he wanted to make it right. Not that he ever really could. That's a lot of people. He turned because he couldn't stand the thought of losing to Kylo Ren. I mean, could there be anyone or anything more pathetic and disgusting in the entire galaxy than Hux in that moment? And yet, it all gets played for a laugh. Even our heroes turn the whole thing into a joke.
I'm the spy.
What? You?
We don't have much time.
I knew it!
No, you did not.
When in reality, they should have been tempted to execute him on the spot for war crimes, only staying their hand because he was now helping them, even if the reason behind it was anything but noble. Okay, now let's move on to a few final comments here before wrapping this up, starting with this one from Emperor Cubone, who said, I say C only because he was the only thing on screen in The Rise of Skywalker to have believable character development. I fully believe he's petty enough to become a spy just to spite Kylo Ren, but then the movie couldn't have the slightest growth for anyone, so they immediately murdered him and that was the end of that. At least he lasted longer than Phasma. Yay? Next up, this comment from Jules the Jedi, who said, I gave him a D. Hux in The Force Awakens was the new Tarkin, and he was much more terrifying. Hux in The Last Jedi was a joke, and in The Rise of Skywalker, he had no character other than, I'm the spy. If it wasn't for The Force Awakens, I would give him an F, because of how inconsistent he is, but Force Awakens made him just a little better overall. Also, here we have this comment from McKeen Mull, who said, I'm giving a D because there was a lot of potential for a character that was a high-ranked member of the First Order that reviled Kylo. It could have been interesting if they'd gone the direction of two brothers competing for Snoke's approval, but they didn't go that route. They decided to make him the pun of a joke rather than a rival to Kylo's honor, so a solid D. Next up here, then, we have this comment from Melvin Mason, who said, when I saw General Hux in Star Wars The Force Awakens, I thought he was going to be the brains behind the First Order, kind of like a new generation Moff Tarkin, but his character totally changed in the final two movies. He started as a strong, authoritarian, idealistic dictator-type military leader who showed that he could stand up to Kylo Ren and appeared as his equal, but the evolution of his character in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker turned him into a laughingstock, and in the end an incompetent traitor to his own cause. I gave his character a D instead of an F because I saw a lot of potential for General Hux, but he was derailed due to a lack of continuity in the sequel trilogy. Also, I thought that the actor did a good job in the first movie. His performance in the last two was not good, only to the fault of the writers and lack of consistency in the trilogy. Also, here we have this comment from Mr. Man Guy, who said, gave him a C. He was cool in The Force Awakens, he seemed intimidating and wasn't a goofy cartoon villain. Plus, he wasn't afraid of Kylo Ren. It could have been interesting to see a power struggle between the two. Moving on then, we have this comment from Raul Ramos, who said, "I enjoyed his performance in The Force Awakens. It's the only thing keeping him from F. The spy twist could have worked if they spent at least a few minutes to flesh it out, or have him survive to the final battle to die screwing over the Empire. D for me." Our next comment then comes to us from Vicky, who said, "At the beginning in The Force Awakens, I thought his character could be a really good addition to the universe, especially his ruthlessness and absolute commitment to the First Order and its course. But then came The Last Jedi and his whole character was basically murdered in order to make him nothing more than just a comic relief and a bumbling, useless idiot that no one respected any longer. And well, Rise of Skywalker tried to give him a more important role, but failed that too with the I'm the spy storyline, especially because 5 minutes later he's killed and it changes absolutely nothing about the plot. He became that useless, and nobody even cared about his death, both in and out of the Star Wars universe." Also then we have this comment from Wolf HD, who said, "Hux is the Empire version of Finn for me. Both had so much potential after the first movie, but were ruined after The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. Hux could have been the Thrawn of the sequels." And finally here we have this comment from Star Wars News and Memes, who said, "D. He's like a lot of characters in the sequels. Solid in The Force Awakens, he had a familiar role he was placed in, high-ranking officer for the bad guys who was able to stand up to openly criticize a Force user without being killed. However, again, like many of the other new characters in The Force Awakens, he was given enough room to grow into his own character. Damaged horribly in The Last Jedi, he specifically was turned into the butt of every joke and was totally incompetent. If you ever needed to prop up another character, have them face off with Hux in some way, and said other character would look a lot better, at least for a little while. The cost was Hux's characterization. Rise of Skywalker attempted damage control by making him the spy, but it was too little, too late to save his character. Like a lot of other characters in the sequels, I'm curious of what to think what Abrams could have done with full control. I feel that the twist of him being the spy could have worked if his screw-ups in The Last Jedi had been minor, but Snoke and or Kylo had been overly harsh, which could also act as a callback to Vader's treatment of his subordinates. This would have preserved Hux having an intimidating villain, while having him stay with what was relatively the same arc. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think of General Hux, or what you think of what I or anyone else had to say about him here in this video. Or you can, of course, nominate and or vote for which character we'll do next. Either way, leave your comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.